Well, good evening, everyone. You've just caught me again. Um, excuse me a second while I kind of get set up here. I must apologize. I had last moment tech issues, as it seems to be common this moment. So, anyway, good evening to you. This is Holy World's Revival. It's Wednesday, 16th of November, 2022. We hope. Well, that's lovely. At last, I've got an intro, even though it was reluctant to play for you. But anyway, thank you for joining me. It's our weekly time of exploring our holy wells and sacred pools and blessed water. And this is a session to explore water's mysteries, the water well and pool traditions, and whenever possible, news of holy wells being restored. So it's hail, hell, whole, holy, good health to you all this evening. And through this edition, put the logo up. We're going to be exploring the folklore and stories of the guardians at wells. And I don't have an actual live guest, but I've got a lovely video I was given permission to show you. It's from Zena Hoctor, and she is in charge with the, see if I can get the title right here. It's really taking a record of the Galway wells. Now, what's the actual title of it? Sorry for being so lax on this. It's got an interesting name, the Inventory of Galway Wells. I'll probably think of it by the time the video comes up. Anyway, what I love about this video is the best example I think I can give to you, giving you an example of a guardian of a holy well, and he's going around explaining what's there and what's to do. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the folklore first, and we'll get to that video that Zena's allowed us to share, which is fantastic. And as usual, Holy World's Revival and Nature Folklore Sessions, the videos, sanctuary support, the whole rest of it, brought to you by the kind support of our kind subscribers. So thank you, subscribers, for the support, which enables collectively for me to do these broadcasts for you. And of course, Nature Folklore is going into book form with a few specials next year and a few sneaky videos as well. That's only going to subscribers. So there we go. That's the Patreon, where the exclusive to the subscribers there, and any euro, pound, or dollar a month all helps collectively for me to pay subscriptions, wear and tear, and keep the show afloat. And if you're not too happy about the let's get the banner going. If you're not too happy going through Patreon and you just want to use a card, there we go. I'm on Buy Me a Coffee, and actually in the last week, I don't know if it comes up for you, Buy Me a Coffee, I've given a couple of goals of little bits of trinkets here that wouldn't mind having to give you a better broadcast. It's really, if I can remember rightly, it's definitely a bit better camera that I can present for you is one of the things. And also, I do use a green screen. I do have a little bookcase behind, but I love to show you scenes about what we're doing. But it's a very narrow green screen. I feel as if I'm totally on top of you. It'd be nice to have a wider one, especially when we get live guests. So I'm after a wider pull-up green screen as well. So those are the goals for Nature Folklore, and especially now for the Holy World's Revival. So enough of the sales chit-chat there. Wonderful that you're here. So let's see the early birds. We've got a few early birds on board, which is lovely. Let's see who's here. Now, who we got? We got Vanessa. Let's see. Vanessa, lovely from Canada. Fantastic. And Lydia coming. Oh, everybody's coming through YouTube first thing. That's wonderful. And no one through the Facebook. Usually it's flooded with Facebook people, but they're coming soon. And there's Pina there. Hello, I am Fulya. All right. Watching from Germany. Thank you for organizing this live session. And thank you for organizing some time to be with me, with us for today. Fabulous. Highly appreciated. Lydia is from Ireland here as well. Hello, Lydia. Fantastic. Definitely a big YouTube support today, which is unique for my broadcast. And I'm absolutely thrilled. So thank you very much for that. Absolutely fabulous. So we'll get going. Well, Guardians, that's the subject we got. And just to knock off banners a bit here, gives room. I'll be saying hello to some more people a bit later. And I'm knocking myself off here gradually. I hope that's not a serious problem. Hopefully I'm coming back. Funnily enough, last Wednesday we did have a power cut, so I trust that's not happening this time. Anyway, we got the video coming up, and I've changed things around because we still don't have the interview with Catherine McGlynn of Donegal, talking about their wealth seeking in Donegal. I think we'll put that off to about another 2 weeks. And it'll be lovely when we get Catherine on board. And we got a few others coming on board talking about their wealth seeking. Anyway, for today, I'm going to move on. We're going to be talking about the Guardians at Holy Wells. And to me, let's line up. I got some photos. Got a few photos, not many today. But my vision of a Guardian, not that really. But anyway, definitely devoted priesthood. That's what I was trying to put together there. That the Guardian of the Well is some very kind of devoted priesthood, if anybody decides to go for that. And but not the sort of priesthood learned at seminary. Or maybe not through taking an online stewing course either. Or attending a weekend retreat and receiving a beautiful wall hanging diploma certificate that you earned that weekend that's given to you on the Sunday afternoon. You're probably familiar with that sort of thing. Anyway, I believe ancient holy wells, natural springs, the spas, or the sacred pool guardians, they've evolved, and most of them out of the popularity of the local wells by the local people. It's something that seems to organically happen in most cases. So often it's someone who's just becomes a guardian because nobody else can be bothered to. But sometimes there are councils of local people that do appoint people into guardian positions at holy wells. Maybe not so much now, but when the holy wells were used a lot by the people, especially when they didn't have taps and faucets like people have today. But maybe, as I say, the holy well guardians might have been organically happening, like these two lovely ladies here. It looks as if they're about to welcome some people there. And they're obviously encouraged by the local people. And of course, sometimes the local well guardian may have been someone. You do get the odd person. You probably come across this, someone who's got super ego, who they've got gift of the gab, and they self-appoint themselves to the position of holy wells a guardian as well. Now, let's see what I got here. Yeah. Now, this is an example here. This is actually on a farm. And you'll notice that ormstone. It probably is a real ormstone, but what the farmer's done there, I was going to show two pictures because he's got a sculpture of a fireman, which is a weird one. But, this is to illustrate a case. Okay, it's my land. I'm going to do whatever I decide I want to do with the well and around the well. Fortunately, on this one, he keeps the well very well. He keeps it very nice indeed. But he's made some of his own statements. And I think this one was an original ormstone. And somehow, to make sure you know it's an ormstone, he's come along with a still saw or something and make sure the carvings are pretty clear. They're a little bit straight. It's a bit of a shame because he's messed about, I think, with an ormstone just because he decided. And I haven't really looked to translate what it is. But this is a sort of a feature that, is... when a landowner sort of gets excited about the well and it becomes their own. I own this, so let's see what we can do. But to his credit, it's a lovely place to visit, lovely clean water, some lovely seating. So definitely not all bad at all. But I'm speculating what I'm telling you about these guardians based on my own personal experience with well visiting and combining that, I suppose, with human behavior today. But yeah, I've certainly met some of this. This is my land, so this is my world types. I've met some of those people. Now, in some villages and small towns, there may have been family linear claims to Holy Well guardianship. I'm not familiar with that in Ireland. They are around, just one doesn't come to mind right now. But I know one in Somerset certainly was connected to a large country house, and they felt obliged and it was their duty to look after the well. So you get that as well. This is quite common, I think. If a well happens to be on a private land estate that's been passed down through Norman times, there's a bit of bone and contention here because there's a whole different management that goes on with OPW, which looks after the wells and all kinds of antiquities all around Ireland. And we need to move in on them more to encourage more preservation of wells, because I don't think they're doing as much as they could do. Whereas over in the UK, they have the National Trust, and it's amazing over the last few years what the National Trust has done in order to bring back the holy wells, especially if they're on what were private land estates, which the National Trust has taken over, and they really do a great job with the holy wells there. But sometimes the passing down started with a Gaelic chieftain. So it's, well, we're really talking about if it's a country house or a family from a Norman baronship or whatever it was pushed down, or from a Gaelic chieftain, then it's a kind of royalty of the well and it's their duty. You get some of that anyway. But sometimes the family guardians of the holy wells, they possess a skull of a prominent ancestor in the area. And I think I've got something, a skull picture here. This is not from not too far away, if I can get this one here. Actually, that's in the National Museum of Dublin. It's got white background, but that's the only picture I could find of that one. And that's O'Carolan's skull. An O'Carolan skull, it used to permanently be placed on his grave outside of Keju in County Roscommon, not too far away from where I'm living here. And certainly they have a festival there each summer. It's generally at the first harvest time when they have the festival. And the skull used to be taken down to the well, which was by where he's buried, the Laziers well. And it kind of, it got a bit of a soaking, and the people were blessed for help with sight if they touched his skull after it was wet, and then it'd be put back on the gravestone. That's about the only example I've got of that, but there's quite a lot of stories where skulls are presented during local well celebration events. And I'll actually talk about that more, because I'm going to have a Holy Wells revival session that's about pilgrimages and skulls. So I'll talk more about that. I'll go into it again. But regarding local Catholic and Protestant priests being guardians of the Holy Well, this actually seems to be quite rare. Yeah, I don't see priests going to wells very often myself, which is strange. They hold mass all right. I don't know if they regard the well is too much of a distraction. They don't want people heading off down the well instead of mass in the church. I don't know. Because the well has links, has perhaps more links to sort of pagan, peasant, what's the other words, the heathen times, I don't know. But you don't seem to see the priests down very often, unless they're actually doing a mass at the well. And I'll talk about this in a week or two when I cover, I'm going to do saints. I think it's Saints and Shrines is next week, and I'm going to be talking about this. So there we go. That's a lovely old picture of a shrine, big shrine. I can't remember which well that is. There's by quite a famous well, and there's a more modern local one to illustrate that. This is the sort of thing I'm going to be talking about next week and make a connection. But monks at nearby monasteries, they're often well guardians, and often appoint themselves as being so because no one else is volunteering to look after the wells. And there's a Columkille well that's north, if I can get the picture up. This one is north of Tala, outside of Dublin. It's when you go on the way to Massey Woods, or some people go up to the Hellfire Club walk. And this is an example of a monk that was a well keeper here, but unfortunately he isn't these days, because a few years ago, unfortunately, he died. And that's his stone that the other monks have put there. But I don't think there's a replacement there since. I'm not sure. I wish Gary was on board. There's no, Gary's not in with. But yes, he's more familiar with it. Gary Brannigan, who looks after the ancient holy wells of Ireland. It's one of his favourite wells. He visits there often, even takes the family for a picnic there. But he'd be able to update us. Anyway, sometimes in some other areas, the local church sacristan actually takes care of the local well and makes sure the needs of the visitors are on hand, like sacristans do in the church, and that the well water is clean. There's one there, that man's there, and clean, make sure it's clean and flowing properly and getting rid of the debris. He's got the spade there to clear it out a bit, and he probably does some more intricate work as well. Now, sometimes the church may appoint an exclusive holy well sacristan, very rare, but that person perhaps get another title. Now, Tobernaut Well outside of Sligo, I think this is what happens there. This is a lovely ancient one. I don't know if that was the well keeper at the time. That's the oldest picture I've seen. I'm not sure if I've got a modern one to show you this time, but that's an old one. This is more recent. You might be more familiar. There it is with the altar and the candles up above. I'm just showing you the old ones this time. But anyway, can anyone, a lot of people go to Tobernaut Well outside. So anybody, there is a well keeper there. Can anyone confirm this appointed by the church? How's that person appointed? I've never been able to talk to the person. When I see a well keeper there, it's a woman. She always kind of shies away when I go, so I've never got a word out of her. She's always there late just before sunset, before she thinks nobody's coming, and reorders things to get ready for the next day. She makes sure there's plenty of candles, and keep supplies abundant. Let's see. I think I've got something here to show you. Yeah, there we go. Well, this is the candles. That's one of the sets of candles that people light there. And she collects the donations. They get returned to the priest, and they do pay for the upkeep of candles and other things that need to be doing at the well. And the guardian, and that's why she's there late at night and probably disappears when I approach her, because she also thins the offerings on the rag trees. Sorry, I don't have the rag tree picture this time. It's an enormous rag tree, loads of visitors, loads of offerings that people put on the tree. So she'll quietly clear some of that, make space for the offerings, and then those removed offerings are handed over to the priest, who I gather blesses the offerings and buries them so that the healing and the prayers within them continues. Now, many priests still host Mass or two at Holy Wells. Certainly there, at that one I was just showing you there, Tobernaut, they have Mass there. They have a Garland Sunday, the last Sunday of July. They have a major Mass there. And they even have a choir, and they have singing. And the rest of the time it has a silent tradition. And there's several, as I say, Mass rocks. Let's see, I've got a Mass rock picture. Let's see what I got here. Well, now, where's this Mass rock, I wonder? No, yeah, I think, yeah, that's the Tobernaut Mass rock. So there is the priest present at Tobernaut. So I do got something. It didn't show you. He's got the well behind him there. But anyway, there were several holy wells still have Mass rocks beside them. The one I mentioned, Lazius well, that has the Caroline skull, that has a big Mass rock with it, and also a big cursing stone on it. I think I showed you that one either last week or the week before. Anyway, the priests still use these Mass rocks by the wells. And if there's no Mass rock, then often the sacristan will turn up, or the well guardian, or put a card table out, or some sort of small table to be present and set up so that the priest can arrive and conduct the Mass rituals. Now, today, I think an outside Mass at well is a very good gesture, really, I think. Bringing people together outside, together in Mass, in a peaceful location with good air. And to my mind, that's actually bringing their religion closer to God. But that's just a personal opinion. Anyway, I've suggested a few ways there that guardians of a well could be from can't think of the word, hereditary, such as passed through a family and through a line at the church, maybe the abbots. But there's actually no archived evidence that I know of that supports this, or how far back the tradition goes. And now there are several modern kind of druidy and shaman people, they label themselves that. Even some evangelistic Christian people that may make claim to a guardianship at Holy Well, and they may fiercely claim that this is exactly how it was in pagan times. And now they're sort of trying to revive the tradition. What have I got here? Oh, yeah, that's the sort of person I'm talking about. And well guardians of some form seem to have been the way of faith and beliefs. Definitely, beside these wells for 2,000 years or more, well before they were venerated by saints. And that's what we're going to be talking about as well, a bit more when I do the saints next week. A typical story, though, is of how this is one way that people decide to become well keepers. You can get a story of someone who says they got a dream or a vision that they need to be beside their local well to honor the guardianship of that well. But the thing is, they're not going to go to the well and tell people the visit when they're there. Oh, I had a dream about this well last night. No, they're not going to do that. They're going to find some fragments of past folklore and history, and they'll knit it together, integrate it with what came up with their dream, and then they may announce to the people that visit, I'm the well guardian, reviving the old traditions, might explain some of the traditions. And I think the Christian church has done something like that as well, because from the 8th to 9th century, the Christian church really got going. But they didn't say, we've got these new orders, we got these new discoveries. What they did was piece together fragmentations that were passed from the 4th century, because during the 6th century, about nearly half of what's now Ireland was wiped out. We talk about the COVID over the last couple of years. They had something similar that lasted up to 100 years. And they didn't know how to deal with it. Huge plague, as they called it then, epidemic, as we called it now. So that really wiped away a lot of the rhythm of traditions by the humans. So that's why only fragments were left. So that's all they knew. They knew these fragments and started to sew them together to bring people together, which I think is a very good thing. And when they put it together in the 7th to 9th century, what they were relying on, the scribes then were relying on the storytellers, the oral storytellers, who believed they knew what was passed to them, what was happening in those earlier centuries. And of course, if I told you on this show, or if I did on Nature Folklore that was broadcasting on the Sundays, is hi everybody, what I'm going to tell you about today was based on a dream I had last night. Now, it wouldn't sound very grand, would it? Wouldn't sound very convincing compared to if I told you that the origins of these folk tales came from very ancient times. And I must admit, I do rely on a lot on storytellers, always have done for well over 50 years now. But saying that what I'm sharing comes from ancient times, that sounds more interesting than talking about my dream last night, doesn't it? And I think that's what happens. That I think really what I share is something in the middle, to be honest. I trust what I hear from storytellers. Certainly, I started reading more books recently. And then I add what I actually see, sense, and experience when I visit places that's related to the stories. A lot of these stories, I think if you wander, if you travel as yourself, pilgrims, you'll probably feel that when you get to places, it can work two ways. There's something you might have read about the place you didn't understand, but when you were there, something you feel, something you sense kind of knits it all together, doesn't it? You could write some comments about that. And also in reverse, you can get to somewhere. A lot of people, when they visit the Cache Caves or even that Tomanort Wild, they get hit with something. A lot of people, they go to the Tobernaut well there, and they really get hit by strong emotions, and then they read up about it later. So one verifies the other, I think. So sometimes dreams validate some of what we read and hear. And I do read articles, reports, and books for extra validation as well. Anyway, enough of me for a little while. Let's see what's any more comments here. Nobody else. I think I saw Elizabeth come in from Facebook. Yeah, there we go. She's saying something here somewhere. There we go. Looking forward to this. Greetings from a dark November in Wexford. It's very foggy around here. I wonder how much of Ireland is getting the fog. And Jane's here. Jane's round, lovely, from Jamestown, Rhode Island, USA. 2 miles by 9 miles. She's on an island there. Brilliant. And Lydia's saying something here. I signed up through your meetup page first. Thanks for organising this. Brilliant. I'm glad these people are coming through the meetup, because sometimes I forget to post on the meetup. It's very embarrassing. So this is delightful, and the few YouTube people come through that. So that kind of confirms through that, because I must admit the nature folklore ones brought 1 or 2 from the meetup, but so this is great. There's a holy well interest there on the meetup. Meetup's a lovely service. I love it, and I should apply myself much more to it. Anyway, wonderful. We got Jane here as well. So anyway, I'll continue with the show here a bit. What have we got here now? I haven't got many pictures today because I'll put more on when I'll come back to this next year. I did have full of things here. I suppose it's safe to make an announcement. I'm a bit distracted because poor Claire, my partner, has been in hospital for a couple of weeks. So I'm going to go off visiting her because I haven't been allowed to visit, but we will do. So she's recovering nicely. So it's all on the good side. She'll be back in action with us soon. So that's why I haven't put together as much as I normally would do this time. So there'll be some serious catch-up coming on very, very shortly. Anyway, before carrying on this, before the domination of the arrival of the patriarchal church, I believe most of the world guardians were women. And here's a modern world keeper here out there near Rathgruan, St. Patrick's Well. Oh, God, how can I forget the name of that well? It's an enormous well. A beautiful one to visit. Aquila Well, isn't it? Lastly, Aquila Well, St. Patrick's Well, which is near Tulsk in County Roscommon. So, I've lost one of the computers down. Here we go. Anyway, my speculation, again, it makes sense based on other folklore that women well keepers is pretty common with the folklore of ancient times. And through September and October editions of Nature Folklore, if you've been watching that, those editions, it was a 3-part series that I ran called Witches, Cauldrons and Ale. And this includes stories of the alehouse wives, the alehouse women. And I went right back to Mesopotamian times, and these women, it was a culture that moved west, and I covered how it moved west through the Scandinavian, Germanic, Saxon areas, came over to what is now UK, and then Ireland. And of course there was changes in culture according to the situations and environment that we're in. But the one thing is, these alehouse women depended on the natural springs, because they couldn't make their brew without a very good water supply, a very clean, very natural water supply, especially one rich in minerals. And the other important thing is, where you've got these springs, often it's very good for the collection of the surrounding wild yeast, which is needed for the fermentation that these brewers. And to me, as I was explaining in the series, the difference between a brewer and a herbalist is 0. Both are the same, because I do believe today that if a herbalist doesn't do things like brew, distill, ferment, mash, concentrate, that type of thing, then they're not a full herbalist. They're more like a botanist who goes out and they forage and they make teas and oil salves, that sort of thing. Very useful, lovely to go to, and they're great consultants. But these other skills are worth learning as well. Likewise with a brewer who only uses hops. That's really limiting their skill. Why are they not using heather? Why are they not using dandelions? Why are they not using other plants? So this is where you get the cross come together. But the most important thing is their water. And so they guarded these wells. If they were positioning themselves in their huts, they really protected the water, and they didn't want anybody approaching these wells, these natural springs, and messing with them. So they were really well guardians too. And they were women. And so not only were there to protect their precious wells, but they also, I'm sure, they performed a bit of the cross my palms with silver, even though people weren't carrying coins. But there would be bartering and exchange in some way, or to entice people with a brew, sort of thing is, oh, you can have my brew if you can give me a few more barley and oats, that type of thing. But this is all speculated as being so before the Christian management of holy wells. So the women, let's see if I got something here, another one. Yeah, yeah, I had to bring her up sometime. The Sarah Humble, a bit of a controversy going on with her at the moment, poor girl. I'm not sure. I might talk about that. We'll see, either this week or next week. But anyway, I brought that picture. That's all I got for showing that women were on hands to greet the pilgrims, and especially to assist them with cures. And certainly Sarah is also pretty handy on the foraging and the fermentation, brewing, all that kind of stuff herself when she's called upon to do that. So the cures from these women, I think I've got another woman. Let's just see what we got here. There's another one as well. I'm not sure where that well is, but she's certainly a well keeper wherever that is. And the cures from the women, as I say, a mix of their fermentation, the brews, distillations, and of course, a very important point of what they served was from the natural well water. And I talked a lot about that water as in healing, in the edition on healing last week. So chances are these women were resident on the land by the well, like the alehouse women would park themselves right beside it until they expanded to have taverns, and they would be nearby. And as I say, people weren't carrying coins. Very few people had the privilege of carrying currency until 16th, 17th century onwards. So they accepted anything that was a useful exchange, either in labor or supplies, food. We don't know. But anyway, and there's an extra, these women, well guardians, that probably would have been psychic or claimed to be psychic. And they could be, saying these women were psychic, like that woman I had here. Maybe she's a psychic that's waiting around there. But psychic could be described as a few things, I think, because when you got a woman at a well, as people up until 100 years ago, they couldn't travel much. They didn't have cars. They had bicycles. There wasn't much of a bus service. So very much people were self-contained in their village or small town. And sometimes they would take a hike to the next town, but it wasn't something like now you go to the next town to get a pint of milk or something. There was none of that. So by being enclosed in a small area, a well keeper would meet everyone. And I think I give an example of that in a big scale. I was worked on contracts on Iona as a mason. And I think everybody in their life must go to Iona. And it was amazing for the time on work that I was there, how I met people from my past. It was like the Facebook at the time, because this was 70s, well before Facebook. But it was really Union Central for me. And it was, well, there was a psychic thing went on. That takes another edition to talk about that. But it just showed me that was a larger scale of this example. The well keeper would really know, because people are visiting at different times from their community, because that was the water source, it was the pharmacy, and they didn't have taps, etc. So, of course, the well keeper would see everyone, and through chit chat would know everyone's intimate details. And people looking for counsel might not, probably not, especially women, go to their priest. They'll go to the well keeper to seek for counsel as well, because they're next to the water, they're next to the she. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And so her psychic abilities may have been from her own empathy and understanding what was going on in local people's minds and their actions. So when people asked her questions, the woman guardian would be able to answer based on her local knowledge of any time and actually using her own common sense to give a kind of prediction of how she feels all the action and what people are doing, what the synthesis will be, and what the outcome will be, just by knowing and being sensory and listening and putting it all together. And that is psychic in a way. And most common thing, she was very good if people wanted to know where their stolen goods were. That is written down somewhere. I can't remember where, but the well keepers were very knowledgeable where the stolen goods were. And she probably also knew, well, the reason she knew, she was like the local confession box. So people would admit to them that they were stolen stuff probably and where they've hid them. And she'd also be aware of livestock problems, because that would have been a big issue as well, that the economics of a local area would be the livestock. And if there was a disease or a problem or a drought or a shortage of feed, all this sort of thing, the well keeper would be knowledgeable about, so she'd be consulted and she'd apply a psychic approach to that. But this is the important point. Not all, and I bet this is the bit you've been waiting for, not all well guardians were living humans or are living humans. Now, there's a lot of folklore about ethereal, unseen guardians at wells as well, as you can imagine. And to me, most of the fragments of folklore that I've picked up about unseen well guardians, they all seem to have a connection to the Sheila and the Gig folklore. That's not going to be a well thing, but that's another subject. I might do separate videos on that, because we're talking on the social media about Sheila and the Gigs a lot at the moment. But the interpretations I have of the Sheila and the Gig that I have heard, I think a best example was just recently. I could go on for ages about the Ballygawley Mountains in Sligo and the Loch Lomond and the tradition around that. But to simplify all that, at a funeral, Claire and I were at recently, a senior person we know was saying, as the coffin was lowering, "We are born out of a hole and then we're buried into a hole." And I turned to explain that further to say, we are formed by and born from water, and then we die and we return to water. And while alive, there are, when we're alive, there are beliefs, not so common now, that our lives between that birth and that passing on and back into the water, they're protected by what we may describe as the well guardian, the unseen well guardian. And so I believe that this unseen well guardian may well be a goddess or a she person or persons present, fairies. A lot of people believe that one. That comes up in a lot of folklore. Eddie Lenihan and similar people like that will talk about that. Or simply a guardian spirit, especially if you're part of a spiritualist church organization, or something that may be a combination of those, combination of goddess, she, guardian spirit, guardian angel, combination. And this is our personal interpretation and what we sense, of course. And I mentioned during the Healing at Wells edition, we are formed from minerals. We're formed within the water, the minerals that are in the earth, formed with the water that's in the womb. That creates us. And all these minerals that form our sort of body temple from the earth below ground, that's what makes us. And some folklore seems to recognize this, plus how we also learn the skills when we're born, we're old, and maybe in ancient times taught by mother, especially, who was the fire keeper, and later on through men too, how to physically extract metals from ores. And by doing so, we learned how to create tools, and unfortunately moved on from that to learn how to create weapons. So, as gratitude for holding this craft, there seems to have been rituals of returning metal objects that humans have made back into the water. Doing this as offerings, as part of gratitude, or as a gesture after the passing of someone who owned and used these metal objects. Certainly in ancient Saxons were big on this. Vikings even big on this, and certainly early medieval people in Ireland, when someone's passed away, their axe, if we're talking about from Bronze Age onwards, maybe Copper Age, because in Copper Age, stuff wasn't strong until they learned how to do the alchemy with tin. So weapons would break, and they were very ceremonial. Anyway, from copper, bronze, iron, metals, when someone passed away, would be either thrown into a pool, into a river, sometimes some of that put into a holy well for a little while. Otherwise, you're going to clog up the well. But certainly the passing of metal objects into the water is assumed to go alongside with our body eventually returning to water. And there's several holy wells. You probably already noticed. You thought, oh, that's a wishing well. And metal coins are thrown into these wells these days. And I notice this is a practice that's greatly increased during the last 10 years. I find many more coins are appearing in wells and still pools in rivers. Sorry, I should have photographs of this, but I didn't have them ready. But I'm seeing pools in wells where I've never seen coins before in the last few years. So people visiting the holy wells, I think they loosely call this making a wish. But they're not looking closer to the tradition. And sadly, I suspect people who do this, they see other people throwing the coins in the wells, and oh, that looks like fun, especially the children. They love that idea. Plop. And they believe that putting the coins in the well is a deed that has some spiritual connection, but no one's particularly clear about what that connection is. But by throwing a coin, it's like blowing a wish with birthday candles, isn't it? So you have a blessing, a prayer wish, and some kind of gratitude before you flick that coin into the water that's related to your time on earth. So maybe not much of the coin offering in wells is done with thought of what the offering is actually for or to. But folklore has told us that metal offerings have been due or maybe for the unseen guardians of the well. And again, depends how you interpret these guardians being goddesses, she, fairies, spiritual guardians. Before there was coin currency, the most widely available piece of metal that people would have are small pins, and they would be donated to the well and pools. Anyway, any questions on that so far? I've got a little bit more to share with you. Elizabeth here is talking about the fog. Wicked fog over down in Wexford. I think the whole country is going to be getting that. And Jane says, give it a love to Claire. Thank you. Will do. I'll be heading off tomorrow. Okay, before I get to the guest video, which will sum up a lot of what I've been talking about, what have we got going on here? Right. So now, wasn't long ago, I was visiting family over in Moray in Pict country in Scotland. And you can include Aberdeenshire on this as well. The unseen or the barely seen well guardian was believed there actually more often to be a man rather than a woman. And that man was visioned as being a grey man in the Pict country there. And there wasn't Picts weren't patriarchal dominated. I'm not quite sure. This might have been later. It might have been influenced by when the Picts became more orientated with the church, the Christian church. I'm not sure. Anyway, we've got the green man folklore that's out of these wells. And I believe, and it's believed, that anyone who took water from a well in the Pict country, if you didn't drop a metal pin in the water, you'd end up dying of thirst. That's the sort of little folklore you have in the wells in many of them in Aberdeen and Morayshire. And now there's Aberdeenshire, which is pretty much on the border. There's a place called, this beautiful area called Corgarth. Shame I haven't got the pictures. I'm going to prepare this better next year for you. But In Corgath, there's some wells around that little town there, and also there's a hillside above this called Bennu. It's less than 10 miles from Corgath. And in Corgath itself, there's the Toberful Moor. Those just known. It's huge. I'm annoyed I didn't have time to put this up. It's a beautiful place. It's a big pool. It's called the Big Cold Well. It's a bit like if you've been to the Shannon Pot in County Cavan. It's actually smaller. The Corgath Well is about 3 meters or 12 feet wide. So that's much smaller than the Shannon Pot. But in this Corgath pool, there's 3 springs that are fed by 3 swallow holes from 3 different surrounding mountains around the town. And all these mountains, through their swallow holes, they capture the rain runoff, and probably inside each of these mountains, the actual mineral content is completely different. So the water is captured. Even the low clouds end up like this fog, that some of it will fall down these swallow holes. So it's all captured water, taken underground and travelled underground until it's thrust back up into this big cold well pool. And one spring in the pool is said to serve water to heal blindness. Another of those springs in that pool is said to cure deafness. And there's a third one that's said to heal lame legs, injured legs. I'd love to know the different mineral compositions through each spring source. There aren't very good photos of this, but the one thing about the Clongarth well, it makes me wonder about the various springs. Is it 7 springs that come up into the Shannon Pot? Something like that from swallow holes. But the Shannon Pot, they all collect up down deep below. When you go to the Shannon Pot, you just see one bubbling hole that comes up, and so it's difficult to tell below there. Anyway, the point to me mentioning Toberful Moor is there's a large boulder. There's 3 springs, and there's a large boulder in the middle of the springs. And the folklore there is the only metal you can donate into that pool is anything made with gold. You can only put gold into it. So obviously there's not many donations. But the legend is that under that big boulder, in between those 3, there's among the 3 springs, there's a kettle of gold under the boulder. So the unseen well guardian is said to visit the pool every night, pick up the gold that people leave that day, lift up the stone, and put the gold into the pot that's under the stone. So it took until about 1970, when there was 3 wise lads, thought they were wise anyway, so they set off to the pool around sunset with their picks and spades, and it was difficult. I mean, they didn't realize how heavy and big the stone would be, but they managed eventually to lift up the kettle stone. But alas, as you can imagine, underneath this stone, the kettle stone as it's called, there was no kettle and there was no gold. Whether a curse ended up on these lads, I don't know. But the storytellers that tell of that story of these lads do add that these lads actually, on their way home, they did meet a hag on the road. And she had picked up what they had done. Obviously, they were carrying picks and shovels. And it said that she cursed them. But I've never heard a storyteller tell what she cursed them with. Oh, they just went away cursed. That's as much as I know. So sorry, I can't tell you any more of that. But the one thing is, I don't know where the gold goes. So where is it? You know, if people have been putting gold in there for hundreds of years, what's it being donated to? Mystery there. And next time we visit family members in Moray, Scotland, I'm going to pop there. It's only an hour's drive. I'm going to take a joint over to that big cold well and see what's going on. And I'll broadcast for you probably next year. So that's why I haven't got any photos. But I look forward to showing you photos. It's on private land, so I might have a bit of obstacle there. But there are the rights to roam laws in Scotland, which we don't have in Ireland. So if a landowner says no, the law is on your side when you try and find this thing. Anyway, I think that's all I've got to say. And now I've got this video. I got the video of a well keeper. As I say, this is from the... I still haven't remembered the name of it. It'll be on the title in the video, and I've just set this up for you. There we go. And on the title, it tells you what it is. And I'll remember it by the end, of course. So this is a video of a well keeper out in Galway where they're collecting up the inventory of holy wells. That's the best that I can put at the moment. So let's get this going for you. Now, it gives a few minutes. Here we go. An audit of the holy wells. There we go.
I'm here in Killeen Townland to the south of Gort in South County Galway as part of the audit of the holy wells of the County of Galway. The audit has been carried out over a number of years, and in this year, 2021, we are researching the wells in the municipal districts of Loughrea and Ballinasloe. I'm just going over now here to meet Martina Nyland Blackwell and Tony Divney to talk about Tubernasul Holy Well. How are you, Tony?
Good morning.
How are you?
Not too bad at all.
Good. Tony, you're one of the founding chair people of the Beha Rural Development Committee who were involved in the Holy Wells research in your parish a number of years ago.
Well, we started in '89 and we're still at it for our sins. And there's some of the founding members are still, and they're nearly the ones that are there all the time. There's Martina Nealon who's here today, and Michael Slattery and Paddy Joe Rosengriff. They're the 4 founding members, and we get a bit of help along the way from a few others. But in '89 anyway, we started and with a view to, well, to promote the parish and to maybe for employment and to restore the sites we had. We knew these sites were here, but they were very overgrown and they weren't accessible. They were actually dangerous, some of them, to approach them. So we laid down roads to them and cleaned them up. You know, with the guidance of an archaeologist. We've been involved with about 4 different archaeologists down the years, and they've been helpful. You know, you just can't come into a place like this and throw concrete at it. You try and stay with it to the local stone and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you did great work, Tony. Then you were restoring the wells, but you were also writing a history as well. You were looking at like why they were here and what sort of cures were involved and everything.
Well, that was one of the first things we said. We do a history of the parish. It's not much use doing the history if we don't tidy up the sites that we were mentioning in the history, because no one would know what they were. So we decided then to go and clean up the wells and do the approach roads to them and put up styles and generally, you know, make them more presentable. And that's the way they are today. We maintain them all the time.
Yeah, and you have other groups involved then, like the County Council and...
Well, the County Council, I must say, were always very good. The Heritage Officer, Mary Mannion, and Galway Rural Development as well. And there's another scheme there in Garton District Social Scheme with Margaret Rochford. They're very good, and they do a lot of work for us. And you know, some people in the past didn't really approve of those schemes, but I think they're very good in a rural place.
Very good. And you produced a history of the parish as well?
We published the history and we published the folklore as well. The folklore was fun doing it. The history maybe not as much, because you have to be very accurate with history, or someone is going to walk over and tell you didn't get this right. But no, we're glad we did them. We did them over a number of years, and we're still at it for our sins, as I said.
Yeah. And you did a brochure of the 6 wells then?
We did a brochure of the wells, and we did a few other booklets on different things. We did a brochure about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was very popular as well, because it gave the direction and to take to get to them.
Yeah, that's great. So you're attracting people. Like, you've done a lot of work in the parish, and it's been great, and it's ongoing, as you say yourself.
Well, it is, and we're glad. As I said, we're glad we did them, because they are very ancient sites. You know, there's 6 wells in the parish, and there's one dedicated to St. Patrick. So we have the headman. Then we have St. Coleman, there's 2 of them. This one is St. McCullough. There's one Keen's well. That one isn't really dedicated to any particular, but the Keen family live near there. St. Faheen is in the Beha well. In the present time, it's worth mentioning that St. Faheen died of plague in 665 for County Westmeath. So COVID-19 is not absolutely new. You know yourself, we had with plague in the 14th century, the Black Death. But he died in there's a monastery to him in Four County, Westmeath, and he died there in 665.
And he was associated with the Beha Well.
The Beha Well now, which is over on the Goss River.
Yeah.
In Beha Townland.
Lovely. So that's great, Tony. Thanks a million for all that information. And I'm just going to go off now and I'm going to talk to Martina about the well here.
You're welcome. We'll see you later.
Great. See you later, Tony. Hello, Martina. Lovely to see you here today in Killeen Townland.
You're welcome. Good to see you too,
Thank
Zina.
you very much. So we're here on your family farm, Martina, and you have this lovely well on your farm, Tubernasul.
Yes.
Could you tell us a bit about it?
Well, Tubernasul, it's the well for healing and cures for the eyes. It's dedicated to Saint McCullough, who's the patron saint of Tulla, and he's reputed to have blessed the well. There are at least 15 other wells that are blessed by him and called after him in the East Clare and South Clare area.
Because we're very close here on the border.
We're on the border here, yes, we are.
That's why we have McCullough here in this area.
In this one.
Galway.
And we're on the Tulla Road from Gort,
Right.
and Tulla is just about 10 miles from here.
Okay. And can you tell us, Martina, about the history of the well? You know, do people come here and what happens?
Yes, people come here looking for healing. In particular, they're for a cure for their eyesight, ailments of the eyes.
And do they come here on a particular day of the year? Or?
Now, there's a pattern day, which is Garland Sunday, on the last Sunday in July, the 31st of July. And they come here, the pilgrims, and do the rounds. And the rounds are listed out there, how to do the rounds on this plaque here. And this is the first station. Going back in the centuries, they actually came and they camped here overnight and slept. And in the morning then they did those rounds at the well to obtain healing.
Okay, and how many rounds were there, Martina? What's the actual pattern that?
Now this is the first round.
Okay.
This large stone, it has the plaque on it, and they go around it 3 times and they recite 1 Our Father, 3 Hail Marys and 1 Gloria. And then the second round is it's marked by a tree and a small flagstone, and the pilgrims circled that 3 times, reciting 1 Our Father, 3 Hail Marys and 1 Gloria again. On the third station, there's a little double altar. It's a flagstone between 2 trees, and the pilgrim circled that 5 times, again reciting the 1 Our Father, the 3 Hail Marys and the Gloria. And the fourth station, they went around the well and they circled the well 7 times, reciting the same prayers, the 1 Our Father, the 3 Hail Marys and the Gloria. And the fifth and final station, they went and they washed the eyes in the 2 little holes where the water seeps from the well and it forms 2 little small fonts or little holes, and one is for the left eye and one is for the right eye. And that is the cure. Depending on your faith, how strong the faith is, you believe in it and that you will get healing from this.
Staying in the parish of Beha, I'm now in Tubber and going down to Tubberree-on-Downing to meet Paddy Joe Rosengrave, who's going to give us a bit of history about this holy well. How are you, Paddy Joe?
How are you?
Good to see you again here in Tubber.
Thank you very much, and you're very welcome.
We're here at the holy well.
I think I'm going to make that. I hope you enjoyed that, found that fascinating. There's plenty there to make a part 2 and part 3 to actually conclude with this. As I say, I'm trying to keep this under an half hour to an hour. If I did the whole lot, I think there's another 10 minutes or so. So that's something to look forward to. And I think an interesting thing there was talking about the healing. That was the subject last week and went into some of the things dealt with there. So I hope that was of interest to you, especially people who'll be watching the archive. Anyway, this, as I say, that's... I'll tell you what's coming up. Thank you, subscribers who are helping out with that. Again, that's the Patreon pound, euro, or dollar a month. It helps keep this going. Now, coming up, that we got coming next week, as I said, I'm going to be doing the Saints and Shrines. That's the 23rd of November. That's next Wednesday. And maybe I'll introduce one or two wells locally that I visited in Longford. And then 30th of November, hopefully we will have Catherine McGlynn on then, and we'll talk about finding hidden wells and Donegal holy wells. And if there's time, I'll have some pictures of how I identify where a hidden well is and how you actually find it with incredible accuracy in Ireland now. There's wonderful facilities for that. So I'll have some graphics to show you how to do that using your maps, using online maps that are available, and the Google Maps app as well. Or of course, use your paper ordnance survey. Bring that in as well. 7th of December, I'm going to be talking about oddballs like the footprints and similar mysteries that you'll find at Holy Wells. Fascinating folklore. And I might include some one or two wells from Antrim, one or two that Sarah Humble has been working on. Right, there's a comment has come through. Let's see, someone is saying something after telling you. Vanessa, is giving a thank you. Thank you for being with us, Vanessa. That's delightful that you joined us. So we're really, thank you. I've actually enjoyed this, sharing this Holy Wells Revival edition with you. And I'm bringing the thank you up over again here. Yes, been absolutely fabulous sharing this with you, talking about the Guardians. It's very obscure to say. People go to Holy Wells, and it's amazing how many different folklore subjects there are. And that's what I'm going to be covering throughout the year and constantly. And thank you there for the some of the video there from Wells of Galway. That was from Xena there, Xena Hector. And anybody who's watching this as the replay, as the archive, please keep commenting, because I come back and I make comments. I'll answer those as you put them down. And I do keep in touch with who's watching. So it's great. If you're on YouTube, you can click the bell icon. That will remind you what's coming up in the next Holy Wells Revival. So it just leaves me wishing you a safe week, full of wonder, inspirations, enchantment that comes especially from the presence of water. As I was saying, when the Sunday broadcasts are now off the air for a while I make the book versions of Nature Folklore, and I'll be making little teaser videos of that whenever I can. So until next Wednesday, when we're covering the saints, etc., until you join again for Holy Wells Revival, I think that's as much as I've got for you today. So thanks very much for watching. Thank you, and I will see you as soon as we can. Thank you. Bye.